We see
Good morning.
this demand implosion in the first quarter. What I need to understand from you, are you still in the demand delayed camp? And will the 700 to 800 million of demand that we saw dissipate in the first quarter materially come back in the second quarter?
Yeah, you have to look at it from the following point of view. The delay is an accounting delay. It's a bookkeeping delay. The machines actually shipped. So you can say from a demand point of view, we're still pretty strong. The fact that we have a revenue delay has to do with the fact that our customers wanted our most advanced machines very quickly because of all the logistics issues and the shipping issues that they see around the world. They said, don't do the final tests, which basically lead to revenue recognition. Don't do this at your premises, but do it at our premises, which basically means there is a 2 to 3 months delay in when we can recognize the revenue. But the underlying shipments are there, and this is also what we are seeing today, that the underlying demand for our product is still pretty healthy. But as you said, we have significant concerns about the ability of our supply chain to keep shipping us the products. Up till now, we've been doing this reasonably well, but a shelf is in place and lockdowns across the globe, not in the first tier of our supply chain, but the second and the third and the fourth tier. You're suddenly finding out that parts of parts that need to be delivered to us are suddenly in a lockdown. Well, that creates a highly uncertain situation, and this is the reason why we actually have a pretty good demand profile. But since we don't know whether throughout the year and also for this quarter we will be able to get all the materials to manufacture the machines, and that's why we refrained from guidance.
Right, makes sense. Peter, great to speak to you this morning. What does that mean then for the prospect of a restart of the buyback program in the third quarter?
Yeah, I think we'll take it quarter by quarter. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I think nobody has it, and it's very difficult to predict, when this COVID-19 crisis will taper off and we'll get to as normal as we can. I mean, that's very difficult, so we'll take it quarter by quarter like we normally do.
Right now, Peter, I'm taking it day by day.
Yes.
You talk about the supply chain. Can we dig a little bit deeper? You talk about the risks in the supply chain. Geographically, where are the biggest risks? Where are the biggest component and geography risks as you sit today?
Yeah. Well, actually, in many places, we've seen a shelter in place in the Bay Area where we have suppliers, but also we have third-tier suppliers from Mexico that need to deliver to our suppliers that are on the West Coast in the United States. We've had a lockdown in Malaysia. It's basically everywhere, and it's very difficult to predict how governments will react and how governments will extend these sometimes very severe measures that they currently have in place. So this is why it's very difficult to predict what is going to happen, and we can give formal guidance. Now, without the COVID-19 crisis, the second quarter would look very good. I think we would see at least a 50% increase in sales in Q2 as compared to Q1 without any COVID-19 impact. But because of the uncertainties I just mentioned, it's very difficult to give you formal guidance because something can happen next week or the week after and we don't get the parts and we can't ship. So then we need to revise our guidance again and again, and it's better just to say, listen, let's take a pause. Don't go to formal guidance, and like you say, you take it day by day. Well, we take it quarter by quarter, and we'll see how the world looks in 3 months from now.
Yeah, Peter, difficult as it is to give any kind of forward guidance, I wonder what assumption you're working under. Is the assumption that we get a protracted recession globally, perhaps even a depression, or is your assumption that we actually do see some kind of rebound in the second half of this year in the global economy?
Yeah, I think it's highly difficult to give you an exact forecast for the global economy, but we have to look at the facts the way that we see it and the way that our industry works. I mean, Yes, I mean there is a general consensus that we will see a recession. That will have an effect on consumer spend. So it will also have an effect on the consumer spending in consumer electronics. There is an expectation that we'll see a slowing of the demand for smartphones, for instance. At the other hand, and that will have a negative impact on our customers, and on us in the end. But at the other hand, you also see a significant demand for high-end compute solutions, which caters very well to us, for instance, because it's all about leading edge. And that is in the space of the data infrastructure, of the communication infrastructure. It's in the data centers. It's in the data centers of the Amazons and the Googles of this world that are currently being pressed because the data traffic is enormous. And also on the personal front, people are upgrading their personal communication means. So there's a negative, which is clearly the result of a GDP contraction. But there's a positive, on the other hand, that we are moving into a digital world that is now accelerating. And that is good for our industry. So the pluses and the minuses, I think our industry as such will be hit, I'm pretty sure, but also there are some significant opportunities there. And what GDP will do, it's extremely difficult, and all depends on how quickly can we return to a certain level of economic activity.
Indeed.
That in certain countries has actually come to a grinding halt.
Yeah, absolutely. So, by the way, if you get a spare hour and you want to help me with some of the tech and the kit, feel free. Really, you're very welcome in this living room. But I want to ask you about life after COVID, and hopefully we will get there. Do you envisage, we're waking up to a unilateral world this morning, the US pulling funding from the WHO, no more money for the IMF from the USA. What is going to be the potential consequence, Peter, for ASML? Do you expect any lashback from the US on your ability to sell and do business in China?
Well, that's a highly political question. I mean, we have the ability to sell to China because, we have Chinese customers, and we've had Chinese customers for 30 years, and there are hundreds and hundreds of our systems in China, shipped over the last 30 years. In the end, if China is prohibited to receive any kind of semiconductor equipment, which is not only ASML, could also be, as you know, there's a lot of American semiconductor equipment makers, then you really need to ask the question whether the end demand of chips will go down. That could be as a result of GDP, but when we go out of this crisis and let's say GDP recovers, then those chips will need to be made. Now, they need to be made somewhere. If it's not in China, it's going to be in Korea, in Japan, in Singapore, in the United States, everywhere. And they will need machines. So I think it is just you really need to look at the worldwide recovery of demand for chips. And like I said, in the leading edge, in the high power compute, you will have a significant increase of demand.